save.
There you are. Okay. Can we make
Hey,
you bigger?
Fancy.
Or you're always going to be little like that for me?
No idea.
Okay, awesome. Great. Well,
Yes.
I'll look over here. If you guys have questions, of course, ask them. Oh, we've got 37 people watching, 41 people.
41 people already watching. So hi, Natalie Esman over here on the other side. So we're just saying hi because we are live on both TikTok and everywhere else you guys are seeing us off of the computer.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm not echoing because I've been...
You are echoing, so I turned me down.
Yeah.
So let us know where you're joining us from, and we're so excited to have you. We go live all the time together. We just don't usually have an audience when we do it, so we're kind
of... Does this cancel the echo? Is that better?
No, but I'll just turn the volume down on this one, and it'll be a non-issue.
All right. So Bill Janishak says, what up, homies? So you guys will be bouncing back and forth now. I have my phone up on TikTok up above, so you'll just see me look up and down. Amy will be doing the back and forth. And on TikTok, she has a better filter, so she will be dedicating herself over there. So that's what we got. So Amy is cutting out, according to Bill.
Oh, okay. I wonder why.
So Michelle Farrell, hey. Look, we got a lot of people out here.
Michelle.
So tonight, for those people that didn't hear Amylee's intro because we weren't live yet over here, she was touching base on both sides. Tonight, Amylee and myself, so she's the psychic, I'm the stoic, and what we are going to talk about is anxiety. And it's something that we both feel is running rampant across the country, and I wore my extra, America outfit for this evening. So thanks to everybody who's out there on TikTok, everybody else who's joining us here off of our StreamYard lead. That's fine. Natalie Esman says, Bill, get a better internet connection. So yeah, the cuss words have been beeped out. It just blocks Amylee when she's cussing like that. It's a TikTok filter.
My goodness. That's not even a thing.
So all right, so let's jump in, Amylee. So one of the things, as we were talking about before, Amylee and I get in these conversations, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, we're down a rabbit hole, very similar to Bill Janishak and myself. But Amylee is known as the psychic who gets the downloads. So information comes into her, and she's got to throw it out, and then I have to interpret it for myself based on what she's saying. So I step in between, cross the woo-woo line and the logic line, which is why I get the name the Stoic. So what I want you guys to understand is that tonight is about anxiety, and we want to talk about its effects. So let's jump in right now with Amylee. What's your definition of anxiety? And if those of you that want to in the comments, please share your definition of anxiety, because I'll tell you you're wrong if you disagree with me. But yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good question. So for me, anxiety is about an uneasy feeling that overrides mindfulness. So my ideal position in life is to just feel like chill, to just feel good in my own body, to just recognize, what I call the goddess consciousness, right? And anxiety is anything that interrupts that feeling, anything that makes me feel like I have to go back and worry about something and pulls me out of the now. So a lot of times for me, anxiety is about the past, things I can't change, things that I wish had done differently, or the future, things that I'm in a hurry to go make happen, right? And so it's really just about the feeling I get when I'm out of control, because I've learned that the only place I truly have power is in the present, is in the moment. It's the only place I can really affect change. So anywhere outside of that is where I consider anxiety to be.
Okay, fantastic. So I will come back on my side of things. When I look at it, I'll be very clinical in the fact that I believe that anxiety is the body's reaction to thoughts of negativity. So when I look at that, I say your body is sitting here going, how do I react to the chemicals the brain is creating? And for most of the individuals that I work with and I talk with, anxiety comes from predicting a bad outcome wherever you're at. And so, like you said, you get your strength from the present moment. I believe that Bill said he knew I'd say that. So the overall
Psychic
underlying.
status taken, Bill.
Yeah, yes. So, and then wake up before too late. If I was in the CIA, I couldn't tell you. So, but again, your brain is going to think up a thought. The thought becomes a chemical, jumps down into the body. The body takes chemical, turns it into a feeling. So the anxiousness is coming at you from both sides because you're thinking something, your body's reacting to it. So now you're sitting out here going, oh, I don't feel like, for most part, anxious means what? I'm immobilized. I don't have the ability to move forward and go there. And I also don't have the ability to think correctly, much less get myself to do something in the positive way, to get myself out of that. So that's what I look at. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I think that, so I believe that we have a human consciousness and a God consciousness, or a goddess consciousness, depending on how you look at it. And I think that 90% of our problems are caused by the fact that the human doesn't want to evolve, right? The human doesn't want to go to the next level. There's too much at stake, and there's too much of a payoff to stay stuck. And so I think that sometimes getting into those loops, like you're saying, like those feeling loops of like, but what if, but what if, but what if, it kind of keeps the human happy, because then the human gets to hold on to their limitations. And what I've learned, especially, so let me just explain a little bit about kind of what I mean when I say that I'm a psychic. Like, I think a lot of people, and myself included, when I used to think of psychics, I would think of these people that, would like put their hands around the crystal ball and be like, oh my gosh. And, this is what's going to happen. And there are definitely people who identify that way. That's not the kind of psychic that I am. The kind of psychic that I am is called a claircognizant. And what it means is clear knowing. I have clear knowing. I know things the way that you just know that the sky is blue and, it's December. I know things. I don't have to convince myself of certain things because they just come in as knowledge, right? Which is great, because then I don't need to validate them to anybody, and I don't need anyone to validate them to me. They're just knowings. And so when it comes to this idea of the consciousness, I now realize that there is a part of us that cannot access the story. Okay. There's a part of us that doesn't have access to the time that I fell down, and the time that somebody, that somebody stole my bike or whatever, or the time that somebody was mean to me, or the time that I forgot my words in the school play. The higher self doesn't have access to that. The higher self can only live in the moment. And we could theoretically override all of our human emotions to live in the moment if we wanted to. We could just stay on what I call, like floating on the surface level. Like, just, hi, my name is Amylee, and I'm 40 years old, and I have 5 children. And I could just repeat that over and over again to keep myself at a baseline. But I don't want to do that, because I still want access to my story. I want, in some ways, to be able to make somebody wrong for what they did to me. I want to take my excuses of why I haven't done the things I want to do and wrap them around me like a beautiful, snuggly blanket. There are parts of me that want that. And so as a result, and there's also really wonderful parts too, right? Like, there's wanting to be loved and wanting to have relationships with my family and things like that. So I vehemently want to hold on to my story. And because of that, I am going to look for opportunities to keep myself in that anxiety loop, because it gives me the payoff of getting to live my story. Does that make sense? So I feel like when it comes to suffering and pain and all these things, could we avoid all those things? We could, but we would also be sucking all of the humanity out of ourselves, and we would only be accessing the world moment to moment as the God consciousness. What do you think of that, Joe?
So if we go back over and say, okay, so Joe is the Stoic, right? That's the person who can endure pain, right, or hardship without showing the feeling associated or complaining. And that's why it's very appropriate. Because to me, the answer is, we are going to sit back, something happens to us, right? And my saying is action solves everything. Why? Because most people stop when something happens to them. So if something's happening, they're going to stop. And I believe it's because they want to continue that story of whatever it is, right? I was having a conversation today with somebody who was explaining how the person in their life is continuously a victim, and the story perpetrates back and forth. Well, that individual is also always anxious about whatever is going to happen. Why are they anxious about it? Because it's how can I find a way to become the victim in this scenario? And it's a nonstop thing. But again, the story is like that. And so that's what I look at and say, what is it that we're trying to legit come up with? And the individual themselves, whether it's God conscious or whether it's the other way around and say it's just me being a human, I literally think we've been conditioned to hurt that, right? Conditioned to hurt, so that's the word there. Mo, hello, good. I'm hoping the echo stopped. So
yeah, I fixed it. I muted my computer, so my computer's not picking you up anymore, and now we're just hearing the
great
phone.
Thank you for that. Yeah, everybody on the other side's going, what was this? So they're like, I don't hear an echo. But so looking at this, I want you to understand, we are bombarded all the time with the messaging of getting ourselves to become anxious. We are raised to the point of being anxious. What happens if you're a child that is held back with, oh, guess what, parents? My mom is always anxious about something, so I learned that behavior. So it takes a conscious effort to come out of it. But if you don't immediately feel, and one of the things I like to teach people to do is that when something happens, in order for you to take action, you have to build that bubble around the scenario that just happened. I need like this little time bubble around me so that when something happens, there's that pause or that beat so that I can consciously make a decision as opposed to the unconscious programming that is coming up.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And so that's what I look for. And that's what I try to get people to understand is that just pause it at that point, whatever happens. And then the action part is go into it as opposed to retreating. I think Bill said it really well earlier, which was anxiety is an appropriate response at an inappropriate time. So we are predicting something and we're anxious about it coming up, but it hasn't happened yet, right? And what do they say? It's 95%, right, of what you worry about doesn't happen. And if that's the case, why are we worrying about it? And too many people get stuck in the worrying cycle, allowing their body to get addicted to the chemical of worry. And so when you wake up in the morning, you all of a sudden say, I want to crave worry. And your body doesn't say, hey, I need worry. Your body goes, hey, brain, taps on the stem and says, I need some of that stuff.
Right.
Okay? And then your brain goes, oh, you mean when I start thinking really messed up thoughts? And then goes down and sends the chemicals down. Your body goes, oh, this is much better. That's what I'm used to. And so, again, if you can do that pause so that you say, I'm not going to react right now immediately to whatever it is that's going on, I feel that that's the first step out of it to break the cycle. Because, again, I feel anxious only when I can't see the outcome, right? When I'm in a situation. But I also know that the lack of emotion helps me to keep clarity in that actual moment. So
yeah, that's very, very well said. I just want to take a moment and let everyone know, if you're just joining us, this is The Psychic and the Stoic. This is a new show that Joe and I are doing together. I'm the psychic, he's the stoic. And so we're really excited to be bringing you this fresh new show here tonight, where we're going to talk about anxiety and the different perspectives we have about it. So I come from a very, emotionally aware background, where Joe is a lot more cool, calm, and collected. And so hopefully everybody will find something for themselves. This will resonate for you. Oh my gosh, I'm not alone. That's really what we're looking for. So if you guys are loving what we're talking about and it resonates for you, go ahead and give us a follow, one, both, whatever resonates for you. And we have our, not on TikTok, but on StreamYard at the bottom, we have both of our websites streaming. So amyleewestervelt.com and thegeniuslinks.com. Both of those are available if you guys want to learn more about us or where we came from. We're both pretty cool people, but we'll let you figure that out for yourselves. So going back to what you said though, Joe, I think, a really great practice that I have adopted, and I wish I could say I did it more often, but is that when I start to notice the negative thought, I immediately take myself to my happy place, right? And I think you actually taught me this way back in the day, and then I kind of created my own little, take on it, but you call it cancel, right?
Yeah.
And when you take the cancel, you immediately go somewhere that you can kind of hold yourself, right? Because we're intellectuals, because I'm neurodivergent. I don't know if you identify that way, but I know I'm diagnosed ADHD. Our brains are going a million miles a minute, and we can actually skip over thoughts that we're trying to have. So we have to be very methodical about where we take our consciousness. So when cancel, I know that I just have to go and teleport my consciousness to the middle of the ocean. And I can hang out there until I'm ready to queue up that next thought. And I think that's been really, helpful to me, because I think for a long time, I just thought, okay, I've got to go think of something else. But meanwhile, it's like, well, what? Because I'm already at this negative vibration. Like, where do I go? How do I jump out of that hole? And so it's really important to have those thoughts queued up. So as someone who's done cancel for a really long time, longer than I ever have, what is your thought process, and like, what's your strategy for getting yourself to that place? And then kind of how does that work for you?
Perfect. So I think Bill summarized it really well over on the other channel, which is ADHD is a superpower. I believe it is. I also want to go back and touch on Natalie Essman threw up and said, is this compartmentalizing? And I'm going to say, I don't view it as compartmentalizing, because compartmentalizing means put everything in its box. And so to me, that is what comes out after the reaction, after everything's up. That's when you stop and say, okay, I can't have this in front of me anymore. I need to move it over to here. Okay. And that's how you compartmentalize something and say it's over there. One of the things I think is compartmentalizing is just an exercise to keep your mind busy, but it's not accomplishing what you think it's accomplishing. Because when people get to the point of, let me go inebriate myself so I can get to the point of not feeling right now, the walls of the compartments break and they come down and things come flooding back to you. So it's compartmentalizing something is an active way of doing it. And to me, I don't want to stay active in my mind. All I want is to determine what is the appropriate response. Now, my brain, the way it works, because ADHD as well, and it's nonstop. I view ADHD as a sign of intelligence. I say your brain works quicker than most because you get the concepts more. Okay, so most people on ADHD are anticipating my next words to say, I knew he was going to say it. I knew that was what it was. That's up next, right? Yes, Bill, we know you're doing that. And so it's always the way something comes in. So when I catch myself, okay, because I neutralize the feeling with that space, what will happen is I will get lost in thought, and then my body will wake me back up into it. And I'll get that, wow, I don't feel so great, right? What happened to my energy level? What just happened here? That's when I look, and again, action solves everything. So I will jump back into what is that thought? Where am I going? And how do I solve, right? And so one of the affirmations apps that you shared with me was what? Which is my affirmation I have out there says, I can solve, resolve, or evolve any situation I find myself in. Okay. And I don't utilize emotion or passion to try to solve a problem, because I believe you lose the ability to think that way. So for me, every time I started thinking something, and again, more and more science is coming up that your brain is just pulling up thoughts to keep itself active. And so as something comes up, if your brain wants to get your attention, okay, so for all the gamers out there that go grab their controls and start going, as you're playing your game and your brain's entertained, when you turn it off, your brain immediately starts giving you like the oh crap scenarios. And it's like, oh, what about this? What about this? Because it's trying to stay active. Every thought isn't you. And a lot of people miss that. Okay. The thought that's coming up is not necessarily you. It's the thought that all it's doing is going for, I want to get a chemical reaction. So to me, something comes up and I stop. Now, I used to have one of those little rubber bands, right? Somebody told me before, they go, oh, you want to train yourself? Like there was a company way back when I was a child. Like my dad said,
way back,
guys, we're talking, I mean, look,
black and
there's
white.
gray here for a reason. So there was a company back there that used to say, I can get you to quit smoking. And so then you would go there, and when you go into it, all of a sudden they would go in, they go, hey, pick up that cigarette. Pick it up. You want that? Pick it up. And when you picked it up, it shocked you. There's somebody sitting there with a buzzer going, and it was just keep upping the juice until you said to yourself, I don't want to pick it up. It was like, hey, go light it up. Then you go to light it up. And when you lit it up in the room, they were like, right? And all you're doing is conditioning your brain. So using that same logic, it was like, okay, so if my brain is over there, yes, throwaway, Joe is ancient. It's true. Yeah. If you put a rubber band around your wrist and you consciously caught a thought that wasn't the thought you wanted, you pull the rubber band and snap it. And then that's going to jar the body, introduce pain. Pain spikes up to the brain, triggers the brain, and goes, oh, we don't want that. And who did that to us? Oh, it was us. What is that? And so it starts to learn it. But to me, the answer was, why can't I? Now, again, if you guys understand who you are as far as, are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Or are you a kinesthetic learner? Okay, so the kinesthetic people can clap their hands, right? Or smack themselves on the chest, hit their head to get themselves to acknowledge there's something that's not happening that the way they want it to be. So when I get that thought, I just answer and go, cancel, and then go back. And so during the day, people can hear me go, cancel, because I need to say it out loud so it goes back through my ears and gets processed properly. And so, and I think a lot of people need to know what is that trigger moment. And all it is the acknowledgement of what is going on in your head. And sometimes we get so lost in something that we want to make sure that, right, that we feel it all the way out. And a lot of coaches will tell you, you got to feel it. You got to feel it all the way through. And I'm like, I don't believe you have to feel it all the way through. Yeah. And that's my answer. Do you really? I don't think so. But again, if you want to go sit with somebody who's a licensed person that gets paid every hour to hear your problems, my goal would never to be the one who solved your problem, because then my income stops. Right. So I rambled enough. So
you didn't ramble at all. Okay, so I have a question. And by the way, folks in TikTok land or on Facebook, wherever else we're live, if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask them. We are sitting here spitballing, obviously, but we also both, we both have very prolific careers. We're both respected thought leaders in our respective disciplines. We both rubbed elbows with some of the most prolific thought leaders of our time. So we may look like we're just two kids, kid, old guy.
Father. Yeah.
No, grandfather. Hanging out, just kidding. Hanging out and just having a conversation, but we actually do know what we're talking about, and we do have the certifications and all that stuff. So all that to say, we're not, we want you to know that when you're spending time with us having these conversations, they're coming from a place of education and not just kind of like, let's just say stuff that we heard on Gaia.
No. The overall goal is what? For one, Amylee started it earlier. You may not have been here, but her answer, what she threw out was, we want to make sure people know they're not alone.
Right.
We also want to help in some way. Like I'm literally not going out going, you know what I want? I want to become a life coach to a bunch of people out on the internet. That's not where I'm going.
Hey,
Okay.
don't knock it. Don't knock it.
Be the life coach. I'm not stealing anything from you. Yes.
No, you're not.
And Bill said, yes, we both have rubbed elbows with him. So that's the famous people that are out there.
Yeah, so this is a great question, Mo. What's the best way to deal with self-doubt or an identity crisis? Because this is actually what I was going to discuss. So, we talk all the time about the meaning of life, right? And like, why are we here? And so if you look at it from an existential perspective, we're here to have a journey, right? To have a soul's journey. So if we're here to have a soul's journey, then why does any of it matter? Yes, we did both rub elbows with you. So why does it matter? Like, if we really are just having an experience here, why are we here? So I have an explanation of that. And Mo, hopefully this will kind of help, you wrap your head around your answer to this. And then Joe, you tell me what you think. But so I believe that we're here to further the journey of our soul. So this is how I think it goes. I think that it's kind of like in the military. You sit down with the universe or God or whoever it is. Yes, Gaia is amazing. I love Gaia. Way better than Netflix. So you sitting down with the universe in the office, picking out your MOS, right? And it's like, hey, so we've got a couple of different profiles. We've got somebody that struggles with self-worth. We've got somebody, wait, hold on. I know I still had one over here that was radical forgiveness. Like, were you interested in that one? Well, I don't know. I'm kind of still trying to figure it out. I need this many points on my compassion, test. And I need this many on my forgiveness test and this many on my validation and worthiness, so what have you gotten there? Okay, let me see if I can find something that's going to give you points in all of those. Okay, here's the profile I've got. It's a woman. She's going to grow up in, rural Mississippi. These are the events that are going to happen. Take it or leave it. What do you think? And you look at it and you're like, yeah, okay, cool. All right, great. So sign right here. And can you bring a skin suit in here? We need what size are you going to be? Oh, it doesn't really matter. We'll just get, the smallest skin suit we have. Great. Here you go. Here's your skin suit. Walk down the hall, take a left, and we'll see you on the bus down to earth. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to remember any of this. Like, that's what I think happens, genuinely. And each life, we don't remember the life that we had before. So why does this matter? It matters because the evolution of the tiny particle of collective consciousness that we are is being fortified by this human experience. So the more that we live on this planet and learn about ourselves and further that knowledge and allow others to shape us and bend us and whatever, and give us all these, size does matter, and give us all of these experiences and all of these learnings, the more they are giving us credit towards whatever it is that we're ascending to. Now, that could be another density, that could be heaven. That part I'm kind of still not really sure about. But this part, the part about why we're here, this is one of those knowings that I just kind of downloaded that's like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. So going back to your question, what's the best way to deal with self-doubt? My answer to that would be to tap into your God self, to recognize that there is a seat of power inside of you that has everything and needs nothing. And you can access him at a moment's notice, but you can't also access the story. So if you want to feel your highest, you can do that. You can literally put on the energetic robe of royalty. Me and my husband, sometimes we play games and we pretend that we're royalty. We pretend that our children are princes and princesses. Is it true? No. Well, I don't know. Maybe somewhere down, the line in the DNA, maybe it is. I don't know. But we own that for a moment. So you get to own having it all anytime you want, but you can't also from that place say, but I can't because I don't have money, or I can't because I'm not that popular. You have to go there and stay there for that moment. You can't be in both. So when you're having those moments of like, who am I and like, what do I stand for? I would just say, go to that highest place. Put on your glasses as Tony Robbins, as Grant Cardone, as, I don't know, somebody who's friends with Grant Cardone, Ken Walls, right? Put on whatever glasses you need to step into that next level. That's my advice. So Joe, all the things I just said, now your turn.
Right. So I don't know about the actual meat suits and those things coming up that we went to, but I know the meat suit is also a term Bill Janishak uses all the way. But so here's the deal. What happens? Self-doubt comes in. We all have it. Okay. It's going to come up. It's going to come up if you are actually doing something new that isn't proven. Okay. The issue you need to focus on is, am I experiencing this self-doubt or identity crisis doing something that I already have success in? Okay. Can I leverage the success that I've had up to this point to help me with my identifiable self-doubt? And I will tell you, self-doubt occurs when there is no movement towards your goal. If you put your head down and just start going, right? Like one of the tips I always tell people is like, give yourself 10 seconds to start moving towards that goal. But if I'm sitting down going, oh man, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not this? What if I'm not? The first thing I'm saying is cancel, and go do one step towards what it is you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. Okay. When you do that one step, that's a success. Build on that success. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again, and move little by little towards it. Okay. One of the things I always recommend people to do is to get testimonials from clients, friends, families, right? And say, hey, I want to read these back to myself whenever I get that self-doubt thing. And when I get the self-doubt thing, I can turn around and say, oh man, but wait, let me go see what else I've been successful at. Okay. Anybody who's on TikTok, anybody out here, all I want you guys to do is go to your resume or go to LinkedIn and go read about all the stuff. You didn't put up there and go, hey, you know what? I blew it at this place when I was there. I went over here and this was a total joke. And I did this and I did that. No, you went up there and you're like, hey, this is what I did. This is what I succeeded at. This is why you want to hire me. This is why somebody should look and follow me. Okay. But most people forget all that. Or if you are one of those individuals that goes out on social media, stands next to somebody else's car and perpetrates that it's yours, well, of course, your identity crisis and your self-doubt is going to come in. It's going to say, you're pretending to be something you're not. And if I'm pretending to be something I'm not, everything that I try to go do going forward means what? I could be faking this too. I could be faking this too. So again, if we're in our lane and we're following what we are called to do, then there's what? There's continuity in what you're doing. You don't have to be perfect, right? So like Mo and I have done a lot of calls and talking to each other, helping each other out, right? Bill and I, it's nonstop all the time. But we put together events to help people get rid of all the negative stuff people put in your head because you didn't deserve it and you didn't even ask for it. And so a lot of times that self-doubt comes from in a voice that isn't your own. And if that voice isn't yours in your head that's telling you or causing the self-doubt, then you've got some movies playing in your head that just don't need to be there. And are you addicted to it is the question to ask yourself.
Yeah. And I think another component of that too, Mo, is, it's like if somebody's on fire and it's not about you, right? Like if somebody's on fire, you're walking down the street and you've got a bucket of water and they're on fire. Do you go, oh gosh, what if somebody else was coming with a bigger bucket? What if my bucket isn't pretty enough? Like, what if I go to throw the water and it doesn't land on them? What if too much water lands on them? What if they didn't want me to put out the fire? No, you're literally like, you are on fire. I have a bucket of water. Here you go. Right? So you have to look at it from the perspective of maybe you're not going to be the end all be all. Maybe you're not going to be the last thing that ever helps them. But you sure as hell can make a difference, right? You can absolutely help them take a step in the right direction. And this, as a coach, I used to really struggle with this because I had it in my head that I had to fix people, and that when they hired me, I had to get rid of their problem completely. Like when they were done with me, if they still had issues in any way, then I didn't do my job. And now I've realized that my role isn't to fix people, it's to activate them to fix themselves. So if I do the activation with someone, they might fix a couple of things. And then when we're done working together, they're going to still have issues. That doesn't mean that I didn't do the right thing. That doesn't mean that I wasn't a good coach or I wasn't a good mentor. It just means that they're a whole person and they've got other stuff going on, right? So when you start to feel that, what if I'm not good enough? Remind yourself of what you are good at, right? And like, you don't have the luxury of deciding whether or not you're going to help people. Because I'll tell you right now, if you're not out there sharing what you know how to do and sharing, how you can help, somebody else is going to, and they may not be as good at it as you. And the worst thing in the world, and it's happened to me a couple of times now, is when someone comes to you and says, gosh, I wish I met you before this other coach. I wish that I had met you sooner. It happens to me and it breaks my heart because of my anxiety issues, because of my visibility blocks, that somebody didn't get the support they needed because they went with something that was mediocre, somebody who had a bigger voice than me, who had, less imposter syndrome, that they signed up with instead. So think of it that way.
Right. And also look at that individual. That individual chose to go out, put themselves out there and say, hey, I am now this individual. I'm this expert. I'm this, whatever it is. And somebody bought into it. Okay. And after they got their results, they realize, guess what? This person isn't that individual, but they had no benchmark to tie it to, right? When they got to you, they said, well, this is what I paid for and this is what I got and this is what you're giving me. Wow, it's completely different. Prior to you, they still saw value in what they got with that other person because it was different and it was there. Vicky popped up over here on the other side on Facebook, right? She said that she believes she's here to help people get through the stuff that she had to go through. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she's here to pass it on, to say that's here because she believes self-doubt a lot of times comes from childhood. And so, and again, absolutely. She copied me. So Vicky, anytime you agree with me, I know you're right. So, but that's what you look at. You guys have to understand that
we don't have to.
You have to. I'm the one that tells people what to do. So you have to acknowledge, okay, your level. Okay, you can teach somebody how to get to where you're at. I'm not the guy that's going to tell you, guess what? The person making $5,000 a month can teach you how to be a millionaire. Okay. I believe the person who's making $5,000 a month can teach you how to make $5,000. I believe the person who teaches you how to make $5,000, if you take it upon yourself to do it a bunch of times, the fives compound, and now you can get to $1 million. But on your way up, there are certain things that you will learn and certain steps that you can. Everybody can help you to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And so some people, I believe, are in our lives simply to tell us how not to react to certain things or how to not be. And so, again, I saw value in somebody's hype. Mm-hmm. They didn't live up to it, but because I had nothing to compare to, I believe that's what it is.
Right.
Okay. Then I go find somebody else and I go, well, this person's not yelling as loud, but yet this person resonates with me. Somebody over here wrote down, Joe, she speaks my language. Okay. So I'm assuming that's you, Amylee.
Or it could be Vicky, though.
Yes. So that's possible, but no. So whoever it is, go to amyleewestervelt.com or you can go click on Vicky Mendelson Fraley and click on her name. So I want you guys to look at it and say, you can help somebody and you can help them move forward. Even the sharing of stories, or I was listening to a podcast today because my buddy Mike sent it to me. What they were talking about was she said her whole career in a job, she sat back and said, I gave people the space and my attention. And they ultimately ended up healing themselves because nobody gets undivided attention and nobody gets anyone truly listening to them. And so if someone's not listening to you, imagine how frustrating that is.
I'm sorry, what were you saying? I wasn't paying
I
attention.
knew it. I was waiting for Bill to type in there, go, hey, can you repeat that? I wasn't paying attention. So looking at that, what is it you're talking about? I'm telling you,
Right.
if you need, all you have to do is sit with somebody and then not let them actually get stuck in the story. Okay. One guy said, I was listening to a guy, he says, I was so down and out. I was so bitter. I was so angry. I called somebody and I dumped on my friend for 45 minutes. And he's like, and at the end of 45 minutes, I took a breath and he goes, I think you need to sit with this more. And he hung up. Right. And again, most people go, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But it was the pattern interrupt that he needed to stop and recognize that he's in that spot. Eckhart Tolle, he says you have the dark side, or this negative energy that follows around you, and that thing's looking for a reason to come at you. And if you don't let it, it will bounce to somebody else. So I think of that as self-doubt. I think of it as imposter syndrome and all of these things. It'll come at you and then you just let it go. If it can't latch on, it's going to move on to the next one.
So on the subject of anxiety, I think we've had a really great conversation about it, but I think anxiety has a lot of kind of like little like fingers that come off of it, right? And so when I think of, you mentioned something at the beginning, and I think you said it in passing, but it was really powerful, that society basically caters to the anxiety that we have. It creates us as anxious people, right? And one of the ways that we see that is with decision fatigue, all the different things that we have to decide day in and day out. But one of the things that I think is a symptom or a result of anxiety is numbing out, right? And I think that society at large, from an economic perspective, really benefits from people numbing out. I think, without the political conversation that goes with it, I think one of the reasons we're seeing the resurgence and the acceptance of plant medicine is because there's a lot of people that are like, well, if these people are mellow, then we don't have to worry about them necessarily having thoughts, right? Because like they're just going to go home, they're going to have their substances, they're going to enjoy, they're going to get quiet, and what's it called, like, into couch or whatever, and they'll be fine. And I am not in any way knocking plant medicine. I think it's phenomenal. I think it has wonderful uses, but I'm saying that I think that anxiety has this propensity to get people to want it to stop so badly that they just disconnect their consciousness in many different ways. For me, it's social media, right? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious. Let me go look at my Facebook, or let me go play a video game on my phone. So I would love to know from your perspective, Mr. I don't have any feelings. What do you think? What do you think is the most beneficial way to navigate anxiety, or how do you even have anxiety?
I don't recognize anxiety as a feeling that's inside me, right? I know that there are things I could be anxious about, right? If you go buy a lotto ticket, you can go, oh my gosh, I'm anxious about if I win. My answer is I reframe it to the point that I'm excited about the possibility. And that doesn't hurt me if it's the possibility. So I look and say to you, if you're anxious about the overall social media aspect, okay, there's a lot of, like, for example, I don't want to put out a post. I don't want to put out a post because I'm afraid of the backlash. Okay.
Yeah.
So that comes up. It happens to me a lot because of my opinions and the way I demonstrate or the way I
Because you're
push
a
it out
5'1"
there.
in human design. You're a 5'1"
Right.
like me.
And so in that design, my answer is I want to put out what I'm feeling and let those resonate that resonate. And so, but there are times where I say I'm a business owner, and is this worth dying on the hill
Right.
for? Okay.
Right.
Because again, let's go out into social media. And this is where I was saying before, we're programmed to feel these things, and
Right.
we're supposed to be programmed to feel apprehension. Because if you are using logic more than emotion online, then what happens to you? You get attacked by everybody with emotion who doesn't like what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to stop. Now, as you get older, as like as somebody said, once you get older, you start to get to that point where you don't care what people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And
Does that happen soon? Am I almost there?
No, you're not there yet. But again, I believe it's a condition of awakening, of identifying yourself or moving to the next level, because you can have somebody who's 12 years old that says, I don't care about what people think. But by the time you talk to somebody at 18, 19, 20, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about, what other people are thinking. I believe high school is put in to make sure that you can bow to peer pressure. Okay. And we can all go back and go, no, it was created to get everybody used to working a job.
Well, we actually know for a fact that middle school is there to catch you up socially. In fact, in the 2 years that you're in middle school, you're learning almost nothing. It's almost all review, because it's supposed to kind of just bide the time. Because remember, parents still need their kids to be minded at that point, right? So you can't just send them home, but it's the opportunity for your social skills to catch up. That's really what middle school is about. I mean, I learned that in education.
Right. And again, also to hit puberty, and you don't have to actually, you're still experiencing it in front of everybody. So that's going to cause you to feel that way, and you go through. I believe, again, Bill just threw it out there too. Anxiety and excitement are the same physiological response.
Yes.
Okay. So then you go back to what Amylee started with, is the story. What story are you assigning to it? And I don't want that. But I believe the goal is keep you in a state that you will not act. So if I can get you anxious, if I can put stuff out, what does social media get you for? It gives you a suspense diagram of you not knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
And you say, I'm going to go look at it. It's the most minimal thing you could do to take action, is to open up an app and flip through it.
Right.
Okay. But it gives you a buzz notification. It'll give you a sound notification, right? It'll do that.
It feeds my content monster. Because like from the time I was a little girl, I used to read Reader's Digest while I ate my cereal, or I'd read the back of the cereal box. So I need input. I get anxious without input.
Right. So if you get anxious without input, understand that's just a trigger mechanism to say, here, if you've always been that way, I'm not going to play psychoanalyst here, but it means there's something you were avoiding so that you could get the stimulus from someplace other than the home environment, right? So that you could actually go. But if you trace everything back, like Vicky said, it's all going back to when we were kids. But when we were kids, we were taught, hey, go sit down, watch the television, get lost in the TV. We forgot that the TV is now raising the child.
Right.
Okay. And so if you're playing video games all the time, what happens? You spike adrenaline, then it crashes with your emotion if you die in the game. Okay. And that constant up and down when you get up is gone. When you're at work and you have a boss that doesn't know how to do anything but attack you, then every day you walk in and go, oh, I'm doing good because they left me. Oh, here they come. Here they come. Here they come. So those individuals only know, right, that the answer I always say is that I heard this from somebody that said, to a hammer, everything is a nail. And if you walk around being a nail, then they're going to find you and they're going to hammer you. But because you chose to be the nail, you're going to end up always worried about the next hammer that's coming after you.
So you should just walk around hammered all the time and you'd be golden.
Exactly. Well, actually, the nails are hammered. And that's where you get to the point of you're numb. Okay.
Right.
But I believe the numbness comes more from overstimulation of the wrong things.
Mhm.
Okay. And you can go back and all
An
the
addiction to that overstimulation. I mean, we
Yeah.
have dopamine addiction like we've never seen. If you think back to like the Middle Ages, I heard that people used to do in 1 year, they used to have as many thoughts as we now have in 1 day. And it might even be even less than, like, even more than that now. But can
Right.
you imagine? I mean, I can't even really watch movies from the early 90s because they don't keep my attention. Like, the scene cuts aren't, like, we don't even realize how used to things we are. We were watching Benji, the Christmas Benji with the kids, and they were like, Mom, this is so slow. Like, Benji's been walking down the street for 3 scenes. And it's like kids, like, we don't even realize how truncated society has become. Like, we get anxious. Like, oh my God, this dog is still walking down the street. Why haven't we figured out what's going on yet? Why is this scene taking too long? How come I don't know what's happening yet? And so, and that's just a difference of a couple of decades. You think back to, like I said, like the Middle Ages, like, how did a conversation go? I mean, you only took 3 breaths a minute. Like, what were you even talking about all day? Or were you? And like, what was your, like, I can't even conceptualize, what were people's heads doing? Where were their thoughts going? What was it
Right.
like
Well,
to be?
understand too, go across to the other side of the world where everybody meditates.
Mhm.
Everybody is in there trying to say, how can I stop the voice in my head?
Right.
How can I get the peace that I need, which is no thought?
Right.
And so if you have no thought, it's not a bad situation. We've been taught that it's a bad thing,
Mhm.
right? That's where meditation comes in and helps to slow the brain and give you that reset kind of back up. But I think
Right.
so many of us are operating at, like, let's just say if we're at 75%. 75% of our brain is being occupied with stuff all day long. Now we keep going after that, and we keep it going day after day after day after day after day after day after day. So then what happens to you day after day after day? You get tired, but you're not letting off the gas. Your brain just keeps going. So I think a lot of us are just diminished capacity going forward. And so if you remember old cell phones, they used to develop memory in the battery. Okay. So the battery, if you ended up going every time you put, if you plugged in it at 50% every time, because you said, I don't want to get, I don't want to run out. I don't want my battery to run out. That battery developed the understanding that 50% was zero. And so now all of a sudden your phone drains down. It's at 40. It goes, you're at 52, 51, 50. And then it goes, your phone's dead. And you're like, what? My phone can't be dead. I always charge it at 50%. Well, that's the issue, is that it develops the memory. And I think our brains are doing the same thing. The shallower we keep our thoughts, the shallower we keep the stimulus, right? Then again, we don't get to that deep connection. We don't get to that deep breakdown, right? Think about how many conversations are deep these days. There's not a lot of people that stop to have deep conversations.
And those are the only ones I can tolerate. Anything else, and I'm like, bye.
Right. But again, different element you're looking for. Most people are going, oh my goodness, what do I do? What do I do? They go, I don't want to sit and talk to you. I don't want to sit and talk to you because, is this over yet? Are you still talking? Because I need to go check my phone and go back to that surface level communication style.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even with conversations I want to have, I feel myself being pulled back to my social. So let me ask you, some people say that technology doesn't have that far left to go. And there are some people that say that we're going to get to the point where they're just going to like there are some people that believe that we've already been to the zenith of technology, and society decided it was too much, it was too stressful, it was causing problems, and they totally wiped it out. And we had it, because if you think about it, let's have this conversation that has nothing to do with anxiety. How many generations ago would it take to completely wipe out everything that we think we know? Like, we have history and we have artifacts and everything, but theoretically, we could, what do we go back? Three generations, and nobody knows what's real and what's not. So how do we really know that we didn't already have hypersonic technology, and then the powers that be said, you know what, this is destroying Earth, we've got to get rid of it, and just completely wiped it out 500 years ago? And then we had the, you know, because think about it, like, what didn't we have to make a cell phone in 1930 that we suddenly have now? I mean, we didn't learn any new, we didn't discover any new elements, right? So like, what was it that's like, what was that evolution? You know what I mean? Like,
well, again, if we're looking back, and if history is correct, whichever book you read, if you're looking at it, did technology have the ability to put things together in a fashion to generate this? And so if we didn't back in the 50s, then again, it had to have been wiped out before, because you have to get to the point of getting rid of the grandparent and the parent and the child. So by the time the grandparent's not there to share a story, okay, then we can go in and say, great, grandparents are gone. Parents are going to forget stories. Stories die with them. If the kids aren't told the stories, then it goes back the other way. And if everything becomes digitized, it's pretty easy to wipe it all out. Let's look and say, okay, the year I was born, supposedly we were on the moon. Okay, but today we don't have the technology to get there or to broadcast from there. So then in my lifetime, in 50 years, did we end up taking away technology and we don't realize it? That we don't know that somebody wiped out the technology that we could do back then? So, and again, you can listen to that and then go, hey, I'm going to be anxious about it, but I'm not going to recommend you do that. So, but I like this comment too. That's why they want to digitize this.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why every platform is out grabbing your likeness. Right. What is it? The thing you did the other day, Lenza?
AI.
Yes. So everybody's grabbing that. I always laugh.
But going back to what you said, though, you know, from your Stoic perspective, right? Like, if everything is for the good, if all of this is existential, what gobbledygook, and we're really just in, like I said, we're having this human experience, then so what? Then whatever. Then, like, we all get annihilated, great, and we're going to start over. We're, you know, like, are we eternal or aren't we? I feel like we dabble in this a lot. Like, we have the anxiety about, well, look at who's going to be the president, and look at who. Oh, hey, Megan. Look, you know.
Say it's Megan. I could, but that last comment, I was like, oh, I know who that is. Yeah.
So, like, you know, oh, this person's in office, that means that we're all going to hell, or this is going to happen, or this is, and it's like, but then you also recognize that you're this eternal being, then none of it matters. So it's like we go back and forth between the avatars of our higher self and our lower self, and it's like, do you know what I mean? Like we're talking about, like, oh my God, they're going to put chips in our brains, and well, whatever. Like, if we're all collective consciousness, and that heaven forbid that happens, we're all dying anyway. It's not like we're going to die a special death if this, I mean, I'm not saying I am not in line to get a chip in my head by any means, and I'm not doing it, but I'm just saying, like, even the most horrific thing that can happen, if we're eternal beings, does it matter?
Right. But again, how many iterations have we gone through spiritualness versus I am just who I am, and I don't believe that I'm existential. I believe this is my opportunity to make something of myself. And so when you look at it and go, now somebody wants to impose something on me, literally, if you look at, if I'm existential and it doesn't really matter because I'm going to do this all over again, except I will not remember any of it, then how do I handle what's going on to me right now?
Mm-hmm.
I care about what happens to me right now. if I look at it and say, I can't project myself into another timeline and another body to say, this is what I'm living. Oh, look, I'm a baby again. I can't get to that point. So I have to protect myself here and now. And then I can define whether or not I believe I'll be reborn or I'll believe something else later on. That's up
So
to
how
each
do you keep from
individual.
having the anxiety about that? Like if there's things you
But
can't control.
let's go back to what I said, right? The anxiety is you using that wonderful imagination of yours to predict a negative outcome. You're sitting back going, oh my goodness, but I may not be able to get this, or I may not be able to do blah, blah, blah. And then all you do is feed your body the chemicals. Your body kicks back, becomes addicted to it, realizes that we're supposed to be stressed. Dave Berlin, hello, right? You sit back and go, my body is addicted to these chemicals. Why? Because I keep giving it every day. I keep coming after it, telling it I need this. Hey, I need it, I need it, I need it. And we keep giving it to it. And then we wonder why our life ends up spiraling in that direction.
So where do you draw the line between a healthy distrust of whatever and not, and being a tinfoil person?
The tinfoil hats, if folded correctly, are quite comfortable. So,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, where do you find the line between, oh my God, China's going to invade us through Canada, and, I just need to make sure that I vote all the time. You know what I mean? Like, where do you draw the line?
Here's the one thing. Mm-hmm. We are so not in control of ourselves, and not being in control of ourselves. Some people latch on and want to control things they have no power over, which ultimately gets them anxious about an outcome they can't control.
Like armchair activism.
Yes. Okay. So the answer is I need to get involved. I need to go down the rabbit hole all the time. I need to jump in and see what's going on. Something's happening bad that I got to go figure out so I can tell 4 people that don't think I'm crazy that it's happening. And so you said it wonderfully in the beginning, which was living in the moment means you need nothing. Right. Eckhart Tolle says the same thing. He says, in this present moment, what do you need? You need nothing unless you have to go to the bathroom or unless you get hungry. But otherwise, you don't need anything, but you're taught to project the want and the need forward. Right? The egoic mind sits back and says, hey, for me to be here, I need to be solving a problem. So if I need to be solving a problem, what do I need to do? I need to create a problem. I have to go one of 2 directions from now. I have to go forward and create a problem that hasn't happened so that I can get activated and do that. Or I need to go back in the past and relive an argument and change everything so that I can feel better about that outcome that comes through. And understand, to your brain, all of it is real. Your body feels, your emotion feels the same thing. Yes. So we are creating all of this stuff to go, let me fix this problem. Let me go relive this problem. Let me go fight with myself, amongst other things. And your body's on the other side going, here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down.
So, just so we can wrap this up with a nice bow, because I'm sure that people want to get on with their evenings and, all that. What would you say would be your biggest tip for somebody who's struggling with anxiety, somebody who feels like anxiety, they have debilitating anxiety, general anxiety? What would be the one thing that you would leave them with tonight, that you would give them as advice? I mean, obviously you gave us a lot of different options, but I mean, just like, what's like the go-to, like, go do this thing and it'll help.
So if you understand that when you are sitting still, that's when the anxiousness starts. Whenever you stop to sit with your own thoughts, it's there. Okay. And what is it doing? It's listening to the body. Get up. Okay. And go and take motion. Okay. So remember, emotion, right? It's energy in motion. Get up and go forward. Change your state. Change the activity that's causing that. Okay. And so if every time you believe it or not, you have programmed your brain at some point to go sit in a certain chair to freak out. Just like you've channeled yourself to go, oh, TikTok time is when I get into bed. Okay. Or social media time is when I end up in the restroom. Okay. So that's what I always do when I get there. So if you go to the bathroom without your phone, where's the panic, right? It's like, oh my goodness, you've programmed this.
Right.
And as soon as you understand you can reprogram, it's a good thing. So get up, do something physical so that your body gets disconnected enough or only sends the good stuff up and go through. So, and I'm not talking like you have to go, be like Mo and lift 4,000 pounds in your garage. Okay. It's get up and go walk, go move, go get the environment to change, and you'll see that there's something else. The next best thing is having a bunch of people around you that don't get that way.
Yeah, true.
Right? You can't be the odd person out who's going, I'm so anxious, because the people that aren't anxious are in a calmer state. And you being around them, you'll pick up the calm as it goes through.
Yeah, that's so well said. I think mine is probably, I talk about floating, and when you think of all the
go dig a hole, Vicky said.
The muck that that you have in your life, like the money worries or the relationship worries or the somebody's sick. I just like to think about like, okay, well, what if I was floating on top of all of that? Kind of like time techniques a little bit, like getting above my timeline, looking at my house and imagine and like watching myself walk around with the roof off, and like just thinking of like, what does it feel like to be up here outside? And that really helps me with anxiety because I just think, okay, none of this is real. Like for me, like I'm having a human experience as a spiritual being. So I'm looking down and I'm just thinking like, okay, she's dealing with all of that, but I'm up here. And so when I project my consciousness, that really has seemed to help me with anxiety.
Yeah. And so if you also understand too, that's you using your imagination because you're not actually floating up above. But you chose to distract your imagination from the negative outcome process by giving it something that generates you a positive process.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we're both geniuses.
True statement. I want to thank everybody who has stayed on. There's been a lot of you that have stayed on through the whole thing. Bless your hearts. Right?
Yeah,
hopefully you got something from it. Even if it's, hey, I'm not alone in this one area that they were talking about. So every week is not about the anxiety. It's about a different topic that comes on, and we'll talk to, what's reprogramming us all the time. Bill Janishek said he survived the Ken and Glenn show, so we can stay on longer. He knows that one. So, but it is true. So, but anything else, Miss Amylee? Final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate everyone being here. Like I said, we're working out the kinks, trying to get a better feel for everything. I realize now that volume down on this, you can still hear me on this, and you can't hear the echo. So we probably lost a lot of people because of the horrible echo at the beginning, but we'll fix that for next time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. I think this will save the live, and we can chop it into a million pieces and put it places. But what was I going to say? Oh, if you guys have any suggestions for next week's topic, feel free to reach out to either one of us or both of us and let us know, some ideas that you guys have. And of course, feel free to check out both of our websites. We both got lots of fun goodies, freebies, all kinds of yummy stuff. And follow us if you resonated with our message tonight.
Yeah. And for those of you that can, go out, share if there was something that you think somebody needs to. Because I think one of the biggest things we do is we take it and we keep it for ourselves. And if you share it to somebody else, all of a sudden they hear something from someone they never would have heard it from. And that helps them to get through it. So hopefully we made some kind of difference for you guys. So
thank you so much for joining me, Joe. And next time we'll have you be the big spoon and I'll be the little spoon.
I think there's an actual, like a setting that should be on your side about how to break everybody up, but
oh, well, I don't know how to do any of that. So
we'll play with it without everybody else on and watching it. But
all right. So,
But perfect. I appreciate y'all. Good question. Bill said, can we stream this into Mighty Networks for our community? Yeah, that's a different community, and I will look and see if it'll allow me to do that. It'll probably be through an API as opposed to the other one. But again, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Come
Bye,
back
guys.
next week for the Sidekick and the Stoic. We'll see you.